Hello, everyone, and welcome to a safe space between us. And I'm your host, Kieran. And today we have a local lad called Lee. Lee, say hello to everyone.
Hi everyone, how you doing? I'm Lee, and I'm the host of the Non-Identity podcast.
Brilliant. Hope everyone's well. Hope everyone's had a good weekend. So just before we start with today's episodes about Lee's story, I know there's a lot of new listeners and a lot of new members. So just want to spend 30 seconds talking about a safe space between us. So a safe space between us, we don't claim to be experts. We have gone through a challenging time of our life. We have been doing courses, and we realise how hard it is to talk about your mental health and also about finding that support. So what we do, podcast, a safe space with no judgment zone, where you can tell your stories and also get professionals on. But also we go above and beyond to try and find that support you need in your local area, regardless around the world. Counted this morning, we've done 140 exactly, so I'm buzzing for that. So well done to everyone who's shared their stories and communicated with us. Proud of you all. And also we're aiming to do so much more with this. But today ain't about us, it's about Lee. So Lee, just before we get to your story, mate, just tell us a little bit about your story, or tell us a little bit about what you do now before we get to your story.
Yeah, so for the last 20 years I've been working in education, mainly with special needs students, working on PSD, so I had to do some training in counselling. I'm a mental health first aider. I now work in a mainstream school as the focus room manager, and what that is, that's for students who are struggling in the classroom. They get sent to me for the day, and we do some work around PSD, which is the personal social development, understanding anxiety and anger and growth mindset.
Okay, that's brilliant, mate. And how long have you been doing that for?
So I've been doing this current role 8 months, but in education as a whole, 20 years, 22 if you count the time I was a volunteer from the age of 14 in youth clubs, something like Millennium Volunteers and stuff. So I've worked with young people since I was 14.
That's amazing, mate. Well done. Good on you. So just obviously, you know what we're about: mental health, supporting mental health, and obviously, me and you spoke behind the closed doors. So just let us know, how did mental health start with you? When did you realise what mental health was, and just your experiences, really? So take us back from the beginning, and let's hear your story, mate.
Yeah, so mental health affected me quite a lot recently, but before that I went through an experience when I was younger, but I'm not too, at the time I didn't recognise I had mental health. So when I was younger, about the age of 9, my mum left in the middle of the night and went missing for 6 months. And that sort of followed me throughout teenage years, because I think I had an attachment issue, because I thought to myself, the closest woman to me could walk out, then anyone could. So I didn't really let myself get close to, especially females. So I wouldn't have girlfriends as such. I would just be more of a mate, because then I thought if they do leave me, then I ain't going to let myself down as much. But I didn't realise it affected my mental health until I done my courses and like the mental health first aid training. I look back on my teenage years and think to myself, actually, I must have been going through some mental health time, because I went out like 6 times a week. I loved to get drunk. That was my thing. So I loved to party. Yeah. My mates gave me a nickname called Burnout because I was a burnout. Because what I do, I go to work, finish at 8, half 8, and then think to myself, right, everyone's been in the pub for an hour. I need to be on their level. So I'd down a bottle of vodka while I'm getting ready. Then I'd go out, and of course I'd be more drunk than everyone else, because they've been sitting around chatting, having their time. And then it was like, I then had to live up to a character, because burnout was sort of crazy. The burnout would do silly things, and it was like I'd go out thinking to myself, right, how can I top myself from last time? So I remember one time, like, we ended up in Caesar's Palace. It was only about 7 o'clock at night, and I walked in there for what would burnout do? Burnout would jump up on that speaker. So I jumped up on the speaker, ripped all my trousers, partied on the rest of the night. Don't even remember the rest of the night. Woke up next morning, all my shirt was ripped, all my trousers were ripped, and I just haven't got. And I woke up many a days like that. So I must have, as I said, looking back, I must have been trying to escape from something, because that's the thing with addiction. Addiction, we get addicted to things because we're trying to make ourselves feel better, and that just numbs the issue for a little while. And the thing is, it doesn't make it go away. What people need to do is get to the root cause of what they're trying to get away from, and then try and deal with that situation.
So when you was going out and being this burnout, when you got home, was you a completely different person? Was you
What? Because
put in a split personality basically?
what?
Did you
Because
have?
in the day I'm working in a school, so I'm sitting there saying like, giving the lectures on drug awareness and alcohol awareness, and then later that night I'm going out downing a load of whatever I could, putting whatever up my hooter and taking some pills. And then I'm in the next
Yeah,
day, all cut lips and that 'cause I've been chewing my face off where I'd been out my face the night before, sitting in the classroom saying to the young people, narcotics are not good, they could do this, this and this for you. And then I'm out again so in a way I felt a bit like a fraud. Because in the
yeah, like a bit
day,
of a hypocrite.
yeah, because in the day I'm sitting there preaching all this stuff and then overnight I'm going out doing whatever I could to get off my face, really.
Oh, I get you. And he was like, obviously, you clearly recognise now that you clearly was suffering some sort of mental health or mental illness or breakdown, because you was putting this personality on. You was putting this burnout, drunken, fun kind of personality when you was out, but a completely different person when you was home. So just talk to us when you got home. What kind of personality would you do? What kind of things would you do at home when you weren't putting burnout out there?
Yeah, because I lived on my own quite a lot at the time because I'd moved out, and I just sort of sat in my bed. In a way, I think I was depressed. I don't know. I suffer really bad with hangovers since then, and even today, I think I could have 2 drinks now, and my hangover's really bad. But back then, so I'd be moping about in bed, and it did get to a stage at one point that I would sack work off for a couple of days. So if I had a really heavy night, I wouldn't go to work for 2 days because back then I was working for Greenwich Council. And I had the attitude, don't tell an 18-year-old to get sick pay because it was really hard to get sacked from the council back then. So it was like, I'm getting paid to sit in my bed here, but I didn't want to see people as well because I think part of me, as we said earlier, felt a bit fraudish
Yeah,
because I felt a bit ashamed of what I was doing. So I couldn't go out and be Lee because I always say, and even now, because burnout sort of is in me still, as in I don't do all that stuff anymore, but we talk about them times as burnout did this and Lee. So it was like, yeah, as I said, I just moved back my bedroom. I didn't really want to speak to anyone. I ate every now and then. So I just think, but then I'm gearing myself up to go out again. And then I was like, life and soul of the party. And people be like, when's
yeah.
burnout coming out? Where's burnout? And then at home, I
Do you
didn't
think
want
that
to.
was? Yeah. Do you think that was to do with obviously what happened when in your younger days with your mum walking out on you, and obviously that feeling of not anyone could walk out on you. Do you think that had an effect on you doing what you was doing?
Yeah, I believe so because I think I thought to myself, I'm gonna sort of self-destruct. People ain't gonna self-destruct me, so people ain't gonna walk out on me. People ain't. I'm not gonna give that opportunity again to someone else. So if I'm
Yeah.
gonna self-destruct, I'm gonna do it to me. So I'm gonna get in there first, if you know what I mean. If that makes sense, I'm gonna
No.
do it to me. You're not.
Yeah, that totally makes sense, mate. So obviously that's how you grew up,
Yeah,
being burnout, going out, getting on it, taking coke and whatever, drinking and stuff, and then going home being depressed and really not talking. So
yeah.
what happened in your early stages of being a father, or getting with your now wife? Talk to
Yeah,
us about what happened, started then.
yeah. So I met my wife now. We've been together 17 years, been married 6 this year. And in a way, she started changing me a little bit because it made being at home fun. I think when I lived on my own quite a lot as well, I was quite lonely. I always liked being around people and that. So it'd be either go out tonight and get drunk with the boys or sit in and have a nice meal. And the thing is, we were friends at first. It took about a year and a half before we got together. And I think that helped because we created a real solid foundation of a friendship. And then she got pregnant with my son, and it was literally, I'm still drinking at home. Like, I'm not going to sit and say she come along and I cut everything out, but it was a lot easier. And then my son cut, and it was either buy beers or buy nappies. And obviously, I decided to pick nappies. And then as the time went on, and I was drinking less and less and less, and then I don't hardly drink at all now. Like I don't like. She's not a drinker, and I don't like drinking on my own. Like, if I knew I was going out, I knew I'd be with people in an hour's time, so I'd down a bottle of vodka. But if we were sitting in and no one else is drinking, I'm not having a drink. Like, I need
Yeah.
someone to have a drink with. So as the time went on, I then realised I don't need the alcohol to be like this fun guy and stuff. I just need to sort of be me. I started sort of finding myself with. I think I spent 5 years being burnt out and living up to. I didn't know who Lee was, and I think I didn't like Lee at the time. I was being burnt out, and I sort of learned to like myself. And I think I sort of then sort of accepted what had happened to me as a child as well. I think it was about that as well. It's about acceptance, and then to then face that on. So in a way, my son will never know how much he changed my life and saved me, really, because I think if he didn't come along, no matter how much, because with my wife, I used to tell her, and I still say it every now and then, but 15, 20 times a year, I'm just waiting for you to leave. Because I still had it in my head, if my mum could leave, then she's going to go. So I used to say, I used to say to her, this is fun, but when you go, then this is going to happen again. So it's like...
Yeah, no, I totally understand that if that happens as a child. And obviously I kind of relate when you said your son, he won't realise how much he changed her. Like, my kids, if it weren't for having the kids that I've got now, I don't know if I'll still be here. Even though I've done some negative, bad things and been in bad times, there could have been a lot worse stuff happening, or what worse stuff I would have done without having the kids. So yeah, they changed my life too. So I relate to that, mate. So obviously you're with your wife as friends now. So talk to us. Obviously we spoke off air briefly. Just talk to us about the situation. What happened when you got together and you're about to have your first child?
Yeah, so obviously at the time, because we were quite young and that, we weren't living together and stuff, but she fell pregnant and she had her son, and then she got postnatal depression, but didn't recognise she had postnatal depression. And it was like really weird, because like, I'd go and visit and she'd be like, yeah, take this thing with you now, or it's going on the street. So then I'd take him off and it'd be like a week and stuff like that I've got him, and she would just like refuse to see him in that. And I kept saying to her, like, you need to get out. And she was like, no, there's nothing wrong with me and all that stuff. Because again, back then as well, like 15, 16 years ago, postnatal depression, mental health and that, well, even as you, like, while you're doing this mission, the stigma around being ill, so people tend to shut off and tell themselves there's nothing wrong with them. Yeah. And it was like, I think that time it took about 3 months before she actually went and got help. And it's really hard, because she obviously regrets that stage. And I understand she was ill and stuff, but it doesn't take away the feelings that we went through at that time. And it was a lot of, like, it's really not battling with yourself, because it wasn't his fault what was going on, but in a way he was the reason why this was happening, if you know what I mean.
I understand. Yeah, okay.
And then you feel bad for feeling like that. Like, I love my kids to the end of the world. Like, I'll do anything for them. But at that time, I was a young man as well. I was only 21, 22. And I'm sitting there with this kid. And then I'm sitting there with the mother of my child, not wanting him. And then thinking, well, just before that, life was okay-ish. Like,
yeah.
There's a lot of battling within yourself. But we worked through that, and she got medication. And she started taking that, and then things were fine. But then she said with the medication that she started to feel a bit numb and feeling this, so she stopped taking it. But you can tell when she stopped taking it, because it started to deteriorate again. So she took it back up and then started taking it. And then we went along fine. I had, during that time, my brother died of a drug overdose. So we had situations with that. But again, in a way, I think I felt I was in adulthood. So it was sad, because that's my brother, but I had my family, if you know what I mean. So it was like, I don't think it affected me majorly, but it was still a sad situation. And then she fell pregnant again with our daughter, and I was a bit umming and ahhing at first, because the statistics say if you've had postnatal depression once, you're more than likely to get it again. But this time we were living together, it was more stable. So it was like she was on her medication, so she felt like, she said, no, I think we'll be fine this time. Our situation's different to how it was when we had my son. So had my daughter, and within 2 days she went, I think I'm getting it again. And that was the only good thing about it, in a way, was that she recognised it early. But when what would happen there, she'd take herself away, and she'd only see the kids for an hour a day. And that went on for 11 weeks. So even though she was getting Well, she weren't really getting the help and support as in cancer. She was just her medication was being upped. Her medication was being upped.
Lee, that's what I was going to ask you. Sorry to interrupt. So obviously, when she had the babies, like the first time and second time, was obviously I know like I've had 6 kids, so I've had experience. You usually get a nurse come around seeing that if everything's all right and stuff like that. You know, change nappies, etc. What was the support for her through the hospital, through her circle? Did she have the support?
Well, no, because she wanted to hide it, because she was scared that the kids were going to be taken away. So with our first child, she would either make me bring him up if the appointment was there, or she'd force herself to go to the appointment with me, and she'd sort of stand in the background and let me do all the talking. So we hid it. And then the second time round, again, it was once we knew there was an appointment with the midwife, she'd make sure she was there in that, because she didn't want them seeing that, because she was scared that the kids would then be taken from us. And then when we did finally speak to the doctor, that again, like I said, the second time round, they said because she was on they just upped her medication, referred her. But then you know how underfunded the services are, and there's only so many counsellors that can reach so many people. Their books are so she'd get referred, and I think it was with my daughter. I think it was about 7 or 8 months before she got the phone call back.
Well. It's now these days it could go up to like 18 months, 3 years.
Exactly. That's crazy.
Yeah, like you say, so unfunded, man. But we chat about the unfunding bit in a bit, because I know how strong we both feel. But so obviously she's the second time she's now realised that, listen, I'm feeling it again. But credit to her, respect to your wife, that she took herself away from that situation. You said 11 weeks, yeah? But during that 11 weeks, obviously you've now got the children. How has that made you feel? Obviously, back in those days, and still now, still to this day, a lot of us men either are scared to talk about our feelings, but also try and play this character of being tough, and we can deal with it a lot. How did it make you feel?
Yeah, that's the thing. So the school I was working at the time, I told them that my wife went too well in it. So they gave me, well, they didn't give me time off. I got signed off by the doctor, but they asked me was I fine. I was like, yeah, no problem. But I weren't. Like, I'm sitting there with a newborn baby and a 3-year-old, like, and I'm still quite youngish myself. And there was one night my daughter had colic, and she was crying her eyes out. And we lived in a flat at the time. It was on the top floor, and she's crying her eyes out. And my son was awake because she's crying. And it's 2:30 in the morning. And I'm standing on the balcony rocking her, holding his hands, just crying my eyes out, thinking, is this what my life's come to? Like, I've got someone I love resenting our children, what we may do, I love unconditionally. But then again, it's that resentment a little bit of like, the children have caused that in a way, because things were different before. And then it was like, again, what is wrong with our kids? Why is she feeling that way towards them? And you know what it's like with colic, like that just goes through your head as well, like why someone's just crying and crying. So yeah, I just literally broke down and just stood there, just crying my eyes out. I think that was for about half hour at 2:30 in the morning, just thinking, what has my life come to? Like,
firstly, like I can relate, but how did you get out of that state of mind though? Like, obviously, emotional time for you, tough time for you. How did you manage to get yourself out of that state?
I think I went to bed the next day, woke up the next day and just thought, like, in a way, set yourself a challenge. You've got this. You've got to do it. It's not the kid's fault what's going on. It's not your. She's my girlfriend at the time. It's not her fault what was going on, because she's ill and it's an illness. Like, so it's no one's fault. It's like, this is the situation, and you just need to get on with it. But then I think I then opened up to my mother. I phoned my mum and was like, this is the situation we're in. And she was like, right, we'll come down. Because she lives in Liverpool, so she's like, we'll come down and visit. I think I then spoke to my dad as well and opened up. So I took that step to speak to people, because before that I wouldn't. Because like you said, you've got a persona to put on. And I feel, and when we get into a bit more of the story, I feel quite strongly about this as well. And I get it when people are ill and going through it, but I don't feel like there's enough support for their support, if you know what I mean. So say someone's going through an illness and stuff and they're getting the help, but then there's a family member that's trying to support them, but where's the support for them as well?
Exactly.
If that
exactly, and
makes
that's
sense.
what.
I feel
Yeah, it totally makes sense to Lee because obviously I've kind of been through a situation where my wife was in hospital. I was at this time losing my mental health, losing my head on the cocaine, on the drink. Um, she weren't getting enough support, I don't believe, from myself, let alone other people. But also, I just felt alone. Like, who's going to help me for the kids?
yeah,
And yeah, and then the only thing that was a bit upsetting was I put something on the crying out for help on Facebook, which led to I think it was a school to report it to social services. But yeah, but again, I was going through a tough time. But so obviously, your wife is now going through this. You're going through this now.
yeah,
Obviously, your kids is very young. You've
yeah.
gone to your mum. So what happened next? So when did your wife eventually come home? What was the next stage of getting support? What happened?
Yeah, I think it just got to a point where we was visit. So she would take herself off to her mum's house, it's only up the road and stuff, and would go and see her for an hour a day and stuff. And then one day she would, I think I'm ready to come home now, and it was really tough. But she came home, and it still wasn't quite right, but at least she was in the house. And then it was a matter of just banging down the GP's door. She'd been on the waiting list with Mind the whole of that time, and then round that time, luckily, a phone call come through, and someone assessed her, and then she got given counselling sessions. So then it was the counselling sessions, and then it was still with the medication and stuff like that. And then that helped her. And obviously, the more she was getting happier, the more I felt like I could relax a bit more. So then
Yeah, no, okay.
I became a bit more happier. So yeah, it was more timing in a way. Like I said, like luckily when she recognised it early, she was able to be referred quickly. And by the time she was sort of ready to come round, the phone call came sort of at that same time. So
Yeah,
it
so
sort of all lined up.
so with obviously she's taking this help from Mind, yeah, and again, like Mind are amazing, close to my heart, but she's taking this help. So how did it progress, or did it get worse going forward? Um, obviously, you said she stopped the medication or was on medication.
Yeah.
Talk to us what happened leading into. Obviously, I know something else that's happened after, but
Yeah,
talk to us leading into that.
so everything was fine for a couple of years and stuff like that. And then about 2019, as I said, things were going well and stuff. And she was like, "Oh, I would like to try for another baby." She's an only child, and I've come from a big family, so I've always been one for a small family. She's always wanted to have a big family, so we sort of thing. And I was like, I don't really want another child. To say, but she was like, "Come on, I think it'd be good." And I said, "All right, look, if it happens, it happens. If it don't, it don't. Let's not put any pressure on ourselves to make sure we have a baby. But if it happens, no problem. We're
Yeah.
stable." She was working at the time. I was working in our house and stuff, so everything was stable like that. And then she fell pregnant. I think it was like the November time, and then we done the world's most stupid thing, but we was excited. We announced it on Facebook and stuff like that in the first trimester, and then about a month later, she miscarried.
Oh man,
And
was for
no, that's okay. And again, it's so hard because like we was in the house together, but it felt like the most loneliest place in the world because, well, first of all, the way that weekend happened, so she was bleeding at first, so we went off to the doctor, and then they referred us to the hospital, and then we went for a scan, and then the doctor said, well, there's the heartbeat strong, so we might be a little fighter, and then sent us home. And then at the end of that week, she proper miscarried, like all the bleeding and all that. But it was a Saturday, so we went up to A&E, and they sent her down to urgent care. Like we said, like we think we miscarried, like we've seen all the blood. We saw the little feces thing, and they were like, "You're
yeah,
going to sit down in urgent care to see a GP." And we were sitting in there for 6 hours, but there's like 30 people around us because, like, so we're sitting there, like, and we know what we've just gone through, and they're putting you in a room. And it got to the point where I had to go up to the receptionist and say, "Look, have you got a little side room or something?" Because like we're sitting with people and we've just gone through this situation, and it's not nice. Like, And then she was like, yeah, and she took us off to a little side room, see the doctor and stuff, and they said, yeah, it's probably has, but we need to do a scan to make sure. But as it's Saturday, the scan room's not open, come back Monday, and sent us back home.
Wow.
So we had to sit there on the Saturday and the Sunday, knowing we probably miscame, but hadn't had it confirmed, to then go back to the hospital again on the Monday. So we went back to the hospital, and again, and I know like funding and all that stuff, but we're sitting in the scan, and it's the scan room where new parents go to have their first scans and stuff. So we're sitting there with other people watching parents come out all with big smiles on their face and really excited because they've just seen their baby for the first time. And then we have to then go in there to be told, sorry, your baby's not there no more.
Oh, mate, that must have been well hard.
Yeah, in your head, and it's so hard because you're seeing people come out and it's not their fault, but you're resenting them in a way.
Yeah,
because you're like,
you're usually happy to see that moment of people coming out with newborns and stuff. Obviously, you've just found out you've lost one, and you've been put in that environment. I'm really sorry that you had to go through that.
So then we come home, and I said, like I said, I think it was for about 2 or 3 months. It was really like we were back. So I'm very out of sight, out of mind, and she wanted to talk about it all the time, and I weren't ready to talk. Like it would upset me and stuff. So I was just like, I would shut down. So she would shut down because she didn't. That's all she wanted to speak about. I would shut down because I didn't want to talk at all. And it got to a point that I just said to her, "Look, why don't you go off and write your feelings down on a piece of paper? We'll put them in a box, and then when I'm ready, I'll read them." And that was sort of a happy medium then, because she was able to. She wrote. We called him Angel Baby, and I'll explain in a minute why I called him Angel Baby. But she wrote letters to Angel Baby, put them in this box. And then I've read them since when I was ready, but it's probably about 8, 9 months after that I was ready to then read these letters. But that helped her because
yeah, that's a brilliant idea, and obviously it made your wife be able to express her feelings in writing on paper, and obviously give you the opportunity when you was ready to read it and come to terms with it. But again, like, my heart goes out to you and all those people and women out there who's had miscarriages. Yeah, like it's hard to, especially when I look at that. I'm lucky enough to have 6 healthy kids, touch wood, and there's women out there miscarriaging. So yeah, my heart goes out to them all. But yeah, so talking about obviously your wife. So you've done that box, you've written down your feelings, and you read it. Obviously, Angel Baby. Lead us to what Angel Baby means.
Yeah. So later on. So the October after, so in 2020, it was the first day of school holidays, and I was downstairs washing up, and I just heard, "Oh, Lee, help!" like that. So I went to the bottom of our stairs, and if you look up our stairs, straight ahead of you is my son's bedroom, and to the right's the bathroom, and my wife's collapsed on the floor outside the bathroom. And we're a bit like a jokey couple, so I thought she fell over. So I just looked at her, what are you doing on the floor, you donut? Like that. And she just went, my leg gave way, but all her face had dropped. And I remember an advert from when I was younger, like face, arm, and thing for a stroke.
Yeah.
So I thought in my head, I was like, shit, I thought, man, she's having a stroke. So I run up the stairs, phoned the ambulance and all that stuff, and they said, like, get her to say, I can't remember exactly, it was like buzzing bees, bubbling, like all the bee sounds, and tell us what her face was like. And I was like, yeah, she can't move her face properly and stuff. And then I sent my daughter downstairs to wait for the ambulance. My son's come out and he's patting her down with a flannel because she kept saying how hot it was. And when I got to phone to the ambulance, she went, why are you telling her I'm talking funny? And I didn't want to scare her. So I said, I just think it's because you're tired. Because she wasn't aware. All it happened in her head is that her leg gave way. But her leg was literally behind her back and not being able to move. Her arm was out, extended like that. And she had no T-shirt on because she'd come from the bedroom. And I thought, well, I better put a T-shirt on because the ambulance people are coming. So I put a T-shirt on her, put her arm through, and she was like, yeah, what about my arm? I was like, yeah, I'll pull it through. And she was like, yeah, what about my arm? She hadn't felt that I'd put her arm through the T-shirt. Wow. And then she went to me, because apparently when you have a stroke, you feel like your body wants to open up. So she went to me, I need to go to the toilet. Couldn't get up. I was like, it's all right, just wait there. She went, no, I really need to go to the toilet. So I had to pick her up mid-stroke and march her into the bathroom. I sat her on the toilet, and then she couldn't go because they say, even though you feel got all that sensation, your body just shuts down because it's trying to protect itself. And then she just looked at me, just went, "I can't go. You're putting pressure on me. Take me back to bed." I went, "Look, I don't think it's a good idea you go to bed. I'm just going to sit you on the floor here." And I sat her down on the floor, and then the ambulance people came, and then they got her out and took her, because it was COVID time. I weren't allowed to go with her, so I just had to watch this
Oh,
ambulance 9:15 in the morning drive off. And they said, "Oh, we're taking her to the Princess Royal. Phone them in 3 hours." And I was like, "Okay." And I just watched it, and then I just walked into my kit, and again I just broke down in absolute tears. And again, phoned my mum up, because being a boy, what do you want in them situations? You want your mum. So I phoned my mum up, and she was like, just spoke me through it a bit. Said, "Look, to be honest with you, you've got the kid there. It's a holiday. Just do yourselves a favour, go out and do something, just to
yeah,
try and
cool.
take your mind off it a bit."
Yeah.
So we popped up to our local Costa's, and this was one of the most heartbreaking things ever. So my daughter was 9 at the time. She just looked at me and went, "Dad, is Mum going to die?" Square in the face, and I just had to look at her and go, "I honestly don't know." So I didn't know nothing at the time. And then got back, phoned up the Royal. Yeah, they said she was there and all that stuff. And then I got a call a bit later and saying they were going to move her over to Kings. So they said phone Kings back about 5:30. So I rang Kings, said, "Oh, what ward is my wife on?" And they were like, "Oh no, there's no record of her." I was like, "Oh, what do you mean?" Princess Royal had said phone. So I thought, okay, I'll have been the Royal. They said, "Oh no, she left. She left about half hour ago." I was like, "But Kings are
Okay.
saying they've got no record. They've got no record of her." I was like, "Where's my wife?" So we always joke now and say she had a little hour up London partying before she went into Kings. So
So where was she?
I'm just in transport, but it just for
Oh,
some
so,
reason,
so, so she was in traffic. So in traffic
yeah,
or something.
well, we think so.
But
Yeah,
okay.
we don't. She
Well,
don't know because
or
she
she went.
can't remember.
She went for a secret party, secret pint
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah, that's what. So that was on the Monday. Then on the Wednesday, she got diagnosed with heart failure, and only 10% of her heart was working. And then on the Friday, she got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And then she
Oh
ended up
wow.
being in hospital for 7.5 weeks. She's done 4 weeks at Kings and 3 weeks at Lewisham. And yeah, it was just such a crazy time. And then she came home, but again, it was like the doctor just said to me, "She's coming home because she's medically clear to come home." So you don't realise, you think like someone breaks their leg, the 6 weeks are done, or if someone's been to hospital, once they're released, you think it's all over with. And it went, that was just the start of our journey. And she come home and she was on 117 tablets a week to stay alive. But we think her body was rejecting them because she went months of like, she'd eat or drink and throw up. She just couldn't hold nothing down. And because she was traumatised from hospitals, I kept telling her to go to hospital. She kept refusing. So then I'm getting
Yeah.
angry at her because like, I'm watching her being thrown up all the time and she's refusing to go to hospital. And there's one time, New Year's Eve, she went and then she was there for about 5 or 6 hours and she run me and was like, "Oh, they said I can come home." And I thought, "No, you're really ill in that." So I went up the hospital and I was like, "Oh, why are you sending my wife home? She's obviously not well." And they went, "Oh no, we're not sending her home. She's discharged herself." I was like, "What do you mean?" They
Oh
went, "Yeah,
my.
she's discharged herself." So I put down the phone and she come through the door. I was like, "Oh, they let you go, did they?" And she's like, "Yeah." I was like, "You sure you ain't got nothing to tell me?" And then she think, "I didn't speak to her for 3 days." I was so angry that we had spent so long that I just could not speak to her. And then it finally got to like January 12th, which was my birthday, and I begged her, I said, "Please go to hospital because I don't want to watch you die."
No,
And
cool.
she went, and they ended up admitting her for a week because all her liver was starting to shut down. And what they think it was all the medication her body couldn't cope with. So they stripped everything back and slowly put her back on everything. And touch was everything's
So,
fine. But then that called, sorry, go on.
so that was lucky that you begged her to go back to hospital because obviously they've realised, wow,
Yeah,
mate.
I think they
Oh
thought,
wow.
I think they said a week or two with it like how it was, she probably would have died because everything was just shutting down. But then that caused a different issue. So I've got her who's had the stroke and stuff like that. But what it is, so what it was we're all born with a hole in our heart. For 25% of us, it doesn't close, but it don't really matter. She was going into heart failure, but obviously heart failure is over years, but there's no signs. So they reckon the heart went into failure, caused the clot. The clot moved, and because the hole was there, it shot out, hit the brain, causing the stroke. So
Yeah.
that's why how they reckon the stroke came about. But it hit her frontal lobe, so that's
Um,
all your like emotions and personality and stuff
yeah.
like that. So she's come out of hospital. She's got a different personality. half of her left side, she's still got no feeling in the half of her left side. And where she lost all the weight, she was skinny. So it was like not having my wife. It was like a new person. Like, you know,
So how
your
did that
wife's
make
got,
you? Yeah. So how
yeah,
did that make you feel? What? How did
yeah,
you cope with
yeah.
that?
To be honest, I didn't, because we're going through all these medical issues and I've got to do tablets and she's not the same person and stuff like that. And I just thought to myself, like, can I actually do this? Like, I didn't sign up for
Mm,
this. Like, I don't want to live the rest of my years like this because this wasn't my choice. And then I'm getting mad with myself for feeling like that because that's
no,
my
I get.
wife. I took vows and stuff like that. And that's when my mental health proper deteriorated. Like, I had to get signed off of work. I weren't speaking to anyone. Um, Luckily, I self-referred us to some support team for our family because I knew I weren't coping. Like, it went to I weren't bathing properly. I weren't, like, I grew a beard and stuff like that because I just weren't happy with my situation. And they passed me on to a counsellor. And even though I've done the counselling training and stuff, I always sat there and thought counselling worked for me. I can work myself through it. So I understand the basics behind why we need counselling, what's going on with the
Yeah,
brain. But
yeah, yeah.
they always say you can't cancel yourself. So I knew what was going on, but I was still getting those feelings, and I was then getting annoyed because I knew I should be able to snap out of it. So it was the best thing I ever done was speaking to this counsellor, and he gave me a whole new perspective. But we done it over the phone, and that helped me out because I didn't see his, like, I read people, so there's like little micro movement, and someone looks a bit sad, I will shut off because I don't want
Yeah.
to burden someone with my problems or upset them. So
No, I get
the
you.
fact that I couldn't see him, it just gave me the opportunity just to offload everything.
But
Like, I could walk
those
past the
phone call
bar and
ones.
go,
Yeah, those phone call ones though, I like them still because obviously I still ring certain ones when I can't like sleep and I'm thinking about past experiences. And they're amazing, mate. Like the
yeah,
support they give you for 60 minutes, and there's some you can have like 8 sessions and stuff. And by the end of the 8 sessions or whatever, by then they can either refer you to somewhere or you might feel a bit better in that field. So I totally relate to that. Totally relate.
yeah, I can't remember what it was, but this organisation, like, they use training counts, so it's people doing their degrees, but they have to do so many hours voluntary. So, and that's what I'm saying. It was absolutely great, and he gave some really good advice about living in the present. And I spent so I ended up having 18 sessions because we'd get to the end of the 8, and I'd be like, I feel like I'm not ready yet, so they'd book another 6. And we finally got like to the 18th session. But at first, it was going on about living in the present, and I kept saying to him, "Yeah, but what if your present's rubbish? Why do you
Mm.
want to live in that present?" And he goes, "No, but what I mean by that is it was like, whatever happened yesterday, you can't get back, good or bad." So I kept talking about how my life used to be before my wife had the stroke and
Yeah.
how it was. And he'd be like, "But you're not getting that time back." And that's what he said. He said, "Good or bad, even if you have the best day of your life and you sit back and reminisce and think, oh, I'd really love to live that day again, you're not going to." And he said,
No, exactly.
you can't control what happens in the future. So don't worry about what's happening in a year's time. Like, like, cause we were worried that it's COVID and everything was being delayed. He said, you've got no control over that. And he said, it's not now anyway, so don't stress yourself out about it. Worry about what's happening in front of you there and then. And even till today, I still live by that. So I wake up in the morning, do my day, 10:30, I try and get to bed. My day's finished. Wake up the next day, and whatever happened that day, good or bad, I reflect on it, go to sleep, and I wake up and it's a clean slate. And I do that day by day, and that's what I've been doing now for the last year and a half. And that's what gets me through. Because I think, because we're still going on, like, she got diagnosed with epilepsy 6 months ago because she was having seizures and stuff. So we've still got loads of issues going on.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
and that's the only way at the moment, I feel like I can get through it. So
Yeah, mate. No,
that bit of
listen.
advice really helped me.
Yeah, I bet. And listen, like to go through all that, and first of all, I want to say, like, to me, you're inspiring, and I hope other men can see this as well, and women. But men, we're finding it really difficult. And listen, where do you see two men live talking about their feelings and
But
mental health?
we're from that culture where we couldn't speak about it. And what did you do if you were stressed or pressed? You go down the pub. That's
Yeah,
sort of
but
what our upbringing, because it was such a stigma. and it still is such a big stigma, but it's a bit more open now. And like you're saying, it needs people like us to break it down. Look, I've sat here last 40 minutes and said that I've cried 4 or 5 times when things were going on. I'm not ashamed to say that now. Back then, I would have been. While I was going through it, I would have been ashamed to say that. To like phone someone like you up back then and say, look, I cried last night. But now I've got no hesitation. I think this platform you've created is such an amazing thing. And as I said earlier, I'm a podcast host. I don't do many interviews. I prefer being the host. I've done one other podcast, spoke to you about my story, and then we're doing I've never done a live before, speaking about me. Like, but this environment and the way you come across and giving the opportunity for it to share, like, makes me feel safe. I know it's a cliche because your environment's called a safe space between us, but I feel safe speaking to you.
No, I appreciate that. Lee, firstly, I want to say, like, I appreciate that massively, but I just want, like, firstly, regarding you, I want to make it clear that I'm very inspired by also, and your wife, I want to say, obviously, I've said hello to your wife in the background before, off camera, but I just want to say again, please pass on my inspiration to her, and how proud I am of you both to go through that. And even though, there was things said that you couldn't cope with, not you, your wife said that you couldn't cope, but at least you recognised it the second time. And Angel Baby clearly saw that sign that she was going to get really ill, and something seriously.
I forgot about that. So the reason why that is because they said her heart's too weak to be able to have a baby. So obviously, as I said, heart failure doesn't come on. So the fact that I always say that he sacrificed his life to let his mum live, because if she had him, she either would have been seriously ill or would have died. So that's why I forgot. Thanks for reminding me. That's why I call him Angel Baby. So,
no, and that's what I was saying. Like, Angel Baby's looking down on you and like proud of him or she herself saying, "Look, I saved my mum." But listen, firstly, your wife. I just want to say, like, massive well done to her, and proud of her that she's still going through this. And obviously, please keep me updated how she is, how operations go or hospitals go, because I will be thinking of her. So please, and also you, mate, as a man, as I know, it's so hard to talk about our feelings and mental health. And you've admitted on camera a few times that you've cried and stuff like that. But listen, I want to take my hat off to you, mate, and just say, salute you, and just say, listen, really well done on being open and talking about your feelings. And what I want to say as well, just it's not even about a safe space between us, but where are you going to find two lads talking about the feelings live, willing to talk about it? We need more people to be open and talk about it, and this is a safe space. But before we get to the end, I want to talk to you now about our views on mental health and stuff, because obviously you work in a school. So just tell me, like, for me, I still think the stigma is worst it's ever been. That's my view. Yeah, I might be wrong, or that's just my opinion. And the reason I feel that is, obviously, I don't think people do realise still that people are capable of change and capable of doing something good. So I find, in my opinion, my view is, I find, because it's me with this safe space between us, certain people who are close to my circle are not really understanding it or supporting it. But then again, I've kind of distanced myself from them people, because these people will talk about you being a druggie and stuff like that. But then you look at them and think, hang on, not that it's right what I've done. You're hypocrite, because you're doing as much. I won't mind you having a drug test at work, but no, it's just the stigma around it. It's like people support mental health. I know everyone supports mental health when it's needed and all that stuff. But for me, in my view, and I talk about it in every podcast, and I will till I'm dead, is that mental health needs to be, I think, educated in schools. It needs to be a day-to-day thing of our life. So educated like maths and English. Because I believe if you educate it in schools now, it won't reduce bullying, but it'll also help those bullies, because they might need some support. Why are they the bullies? Maybe because they've got some mental illness or mental health issues, and let's talk about that. But also they might realise, oh shit, I didn't realise that I'm affecting someone that bad, that it can affect their mental health. It could cause suicide, it could cause them to cut wrists and stuff like that. So if he was educated in school more, I think it won't stop bullying, but it could possibly reduce it. but also you're a teacher. I think there's no support for. Listen, put my hands up. I've been very judgmental of teachers, nurses in the past. On certain teachers, not in general. But we need to do more to support you guys, because who do you talk to? So that's what my next question is to you: is who do you talk to when something tough goes on at school?
Yeah, before I answer that, just go back to your first point. I think it's slowly
Mhm.
being introduced into schools because there's PSDs, which is personal social development sessions, but I
Mhm.
don't think it's all. I think it's sort of like you've got your anti-bullying, so it's wrong to be a bully. But again, like you said, there's reasons behind why people bully, and if you can sort them out, it might lower the things down. And like you said as well, be more open to. So I'm working in an all-boys school at the moment, and as you said, it's hard for two adults to sit on a camera talking about our feelings. Imagine sitting in the classroom with 30 of your mates sitting there saying, "Yeah, I cried last night." So
Yeah.
I agree more, but I think schools are slowly trying to introduce them, but it's got to be right. And then you've got the other option of where if you do it too much, then the kids that work out the system will get crafty with it and think, "Well, I don't want to do maths today. I'll go and tell the school counsellor that my mental health's really bad." So
Yeah.
you've got to get the balance right, I think, because it definitely needs to be in schools, but it definitely needs to be done properly. It needs to be done safely. So that was just my point on education. Back to the staffing, yeah, they totally agree with you, because at work, you don't want to let people know something's wrong because they may feel like you're not up to doing your job properly. So you tend not to try and tell people. And then where I used to work in their special needs school, like my last job, I was the behaviour lead, so I was mid management. But it was only a small school of 40 students and about 21 staff. But I made it so we'd be in incidents a lot where our young people would attack us. I've had knives in my face, tables and chairs thrown at me, punch, kicks, spat on a daily basis. And being a behaviour lead, I had to go to every incident. And I made it a point because I'd been a TA and stuff like that in that environment growing up. I said to my staff team, if they'd been in an incident, well, you're going to have 5-10 minutes off. Then we'd debrief about it. And when we debriefed, it would always be, "Oh, I don't know what happened there. I only did it." And we like, "Stop. I don't want to talk about the incident. That's happened. How are you?" But that was because I'd started as a TA. There's not that in schools. And then again, it was really hard as me as a manager because I had to be there for everyone else. But where was my support to go and speak to? I've just dealt with your issue and your problem, spoke to you. That's affected me. Then I haven't got that next step to talk to, because I don't want to go to my head teacher and be like, "Oh, so and so said this," and struggling because this situation happened. Because one thing I feel like I'm saying that person can't do their job, or then I'm being said like, "You're not doing your job properly because you've got to manage these people."
Yeah.
And in the environment I'm in now, again, like mainstream schools, there's so much pressure and everyone's so busy. It is a little past corridor. "How are you?" "Yeah, I'm fine." And I've done a call somewhere, and really to get someone to open up, you've got to ask them 3 times. So it's like, "Are you
Yeah.
okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine." "No, but are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm not too bad." "Yeah, but are you okay?" Well, and then people then tend to, there's not time in that environment. Everyone's busy. Everyone's got their own pressures going on. Like they've got to make sure these exams are done, and this person's doing that, and that
But
person's doing that.
what I'm saying though is because obviously I totally get that, because I know quite a few teachers and TAs have come to me behind the scenes and spoke, but really scared to talk on screen and get mentioned, which I totally get that, but it's just so worrying of why the system and why the stigma around that. It's like a teacher or a nurse can't feel upset. It doesn't mean they really got mental health like crazy. People think this stigma around mental health, that is your disease, like it's like the Joker in Asylum, and it's not like that. It's to what I'm my plan is, and I think I've spoke to you off air about it. But what my plan is, and something to similar. It doesn't have to be this way. Happy to sit down with people. But what I'm saying is, schools around each borough needs a hub, for example. So say a safe space between us is that hub for all the schools around my area, right? So
Yeah.
say Lee had a knife put through at his face today. I'm not expecting other teachers or head teachers to ask you, "Are you okay?" Yeah, obviously it'd be nice, yeah, but what I'm suggesting to councils and stuff like that is, being a hub is a text goes out, an incident happened at blah blah Joe Bloggs school where Lee has been threatened with a knife. He really needs to be seen if he's okay. So what would happen? One of us will either come down to school, or we'll contact you. Yeah. Hi Lee, what's happening? Blah blah blah. How are you today? We've heard an incident. How are you? And you're going to say, I'm fine. I'm busy. And I'm going to say, no, come on Lee, let's talk. No, I'm busy. No, come on Lee, take a seat and let's have a chat. And that third time, fourth time, fifth time, you eventually have a chat. But that chat not to be depressing. That chat not to be about forget the incident. It's more about feeling how you feeling in yourself. Do you need a breather? Do you need a day off? Do you need tomorrow off? And there shouldn't be any there shouldn't be any judgment why you're off tomorrow. Yeah, and also it shouldn't be not paid. It should be paid. In my view, because I know a lot of schools you don't get paid for having sick and whatever. But it should be like, so a text message comes up, safe space, but I'm just using the safe space between us as an example. Comes up, we come down to school. I'll come and have a coffee with you. Come and have a tea with you. And then we talk about. I'll get in that conversation. For example, oh, you're Arsenal fan, and I am a Man City fan, for example. And then we just have a little chat banter about that and try and get your mind away from that incident, but also in that conversation try and recommend tools and who you can contact and if you feel bad and stuff. So that ain't the whole plan, but that's kind of a plan what I want to get involved around in my local.
Well, because of in a way it's a day-to-day basis, you don't tend to reach out either, because in a way it's part of your day sometimes. So you might not think that it has affected you, but your mood might be down that night, or you might be more straight off think, oh, I don't want to go back in tomorrow, them kids again type thing. But it'd be nice if someone then texts you just to sort of have that conversation. So I think it's quite a good idea, because I noticed police officers, I think nurses, teachers, they're still in that culture. On a Friday, you've had a stressful week, what do? You go and sit down in the pub. You're unwinding with alcohol. As we know, if you're in a bad place, that's not a good mix. But that's the culture. You'll go and sit and have a laugh about it in the pub. You're not getting to the root of the problem. Again, like you said, sometimes you're scared to reach out to your management team because you don't want to look like you can't do your job. I'm really stressed out at the moment because X, Y, and Z with these students. I might need a day off tomorrow. It'd be like, well, you get that feeling that they're going to turn around and say, actually, you're not going to do your job, I'll get someone else in. So to then, like you're saying, have that hub where someone gives that little text to check on you, it might, as you said, have that 10-minute coffee. That might mean that you won't go to the pub on Friday and pump yourself with alcohol because you've had someone debriefing you on that night. You haven't let it build up to the end of the week and having your de-stress at the end of the week.
Yeah. And it's just like what I was going to say as well. Yeah, thank you. And what also not just being that contact, but also being the next couple of days, week, to text that person, say, hey, it's Kieran from a safe space between us, for example, just checking on that you're okay. Because you might, like you said, in that evening, you've had that knife put to your face at school, someone at the gate or whatever, and you're trying to sleep 2 days later, and it's all come in your head again.
Yeah.
All it'd be nice is some random to come and text and say you're okay, for you to open up. Because as you say, when these teachers and nurses are not going to contact and say, I can't sleep, I'm dreaming about it, I need time off, because you know you're not going to get paid or you're going to be judged or something. So I just think something like that has got to stop, and that's one of my main missions as well, to support teachers and nurses, TAs, etc.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's part expected as well by people, like you said, you've been judgmental of teachers and that. I think when people hear teachers or nurses, right, a nurse has got to take care of someone, a teacher's got to teach. That's their job, though. They're still a human being. And I know it's a bit weird, like when I bump into a student when I'm in McDonald's and like, what are you doing here? I'm like, well, I've got to eat. It's like, people see you as that role. So if you're the teacher, you're not allowed to be down in that because you've got to stand there and teach and educate people. You're not allowed to have that feeling.
But that comes back down to the stigma in society, mate. It's like, I just think, as society, listen, we can sit here all night and week and month talking about what the government and council should do and don't. So there's no point doing that. As society, we know, like, why are we going to sit here and wait for the TV to tell us, clap for teachers, clap for nurses? That's what we did. All of us, including me, we were sheep. But But then they stopped, and we've stopped ourselves. So how about we, as a society, get together and say enough's enough? Mental health needs to be important, and I don't think. Listen, we're all going to lose someone we care about. We're all going to die one day, and I don't want to be depressing. Someone's going to die who we love. That will cause a mental health issue or illness, wellness, however you want to pronounce it, where you have anxiety, depression, you're going to cry, you might feel suicidal. I'm totally not sure. But how are we going to cope with it? How about we educate ourselves to talk about it now, talk about all these kind of stuff now and more. Go on, mate.
Yeah, what I was going to say, what I noticed, society, we're very reactive. So we wait for something to happen, then we deal with it. But prevention, so like you said, educate first, and then it will trickle down. And as you said, it won't be a stigma no more. And people will know how to help someone when someone's feeling down and that because they've had it educated into them from a young age. But instead of waiting for someone to jump off that bridge and then be like, oh, we should have been there for them. Do you see what I mean? We're very reactive.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to ask you. So for me, like I had a conversation with two of my older, like my two sons are the older kids in this house, and my daughter's 10. So I had a conversation with them three recently because obviously I put them through shit. I'm sorry about my French, but I did. And obviously I spoke to them and said, "What do you know about mental health?" And their answer was literally, "I don't know. Like only the things you talk to us about." Obviously, since the safe space between us and stuff, and I made my older son, he's on the group, and I'm trying to persuade him to come on and talk during the live for mental health awareness. But obviously, I said, "What do you mean at school? It's not really discussing." They went, "Not really." So I said, "Ted, if like my younger boy, if you felt unsafe at home or really down, you felt." You didn't know what was going on with you. You didn't know, for example, what sexuality, like, was you straight? Did you like girls? Did you like boys? Like, and you didn't want to talk to me. Do you know who to go to talk to at school? And he goes, no. Like, and that's not the teacher's fault. Like, I'm not saying that's the teacher's fault. It's not, because obviously teachers are being told what to educate, and it comes down to the system and stuff like. And I think, whoa, that's crazy. So have you? Obviously, apart from yourself, what about your children? Like, what do your children say about their educational mental health?
Yeah, same sort of thing. So they do have sessions, but again, it's not the right information. It's a thing, but it's like they're aware of mine and stuff because of what mum was going through and stuff like that. So they are aware. But again, that's because we've been in those situations, and I make it a very open policy. Like, if you need help or support, talk to us. You're not going to be thinking, if you can't talk to us, text your nan, or if not, ring your granddad and stuff like that. So we'll give them other, but that's because we've been through situations. Like if we hadn't, I don't know if I'd be passing that information on because, like I said, at our time when we grew up, mental health weren't highly spoke about. It was you need to just get on with it, get over it, and get on. So then, in a way, that's the mentality I had. So if I hadn't gone through systems with suffering with my own mental health, I would sort of still probably have that mentality, and that mentality would be what I'll be passing on to my children. So I think where we can give the correct information. That's where I agree with you. It's got to be done in schools, but it's got to be done correctly. Because there's always people.
I just think we've got to, if we don't sort it out soon, the next generation after that, it's a bit messed up because it's just getting worse.
And I think we don't realise how much our young people are suffering with their mental health because they got locked up for 2 years.
And it's not even before that. I think the education side of it, like the GCSEs and the A levels and stuff, they're getting so much harder, and the homework and stuff. Mate, the homework that I get asked to help with my boys or my daughter sometimes, I go, like, I don't remember that. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's the thing, because I teach PSD. When my kids been home English and maths and that, I look at it and think, what are they? Like, this is like A level.
This is what I'm saying. But listen, Lee, I know. Yeah, I know. But listen, I know you're going to come on again during my live 24 hours, and I appreciate that. Yeah, let's do some maths questions to embarrass myself. But listen, I want to say, before we end up, I want to say, listen, thank you so much. Very inspiring. Say well done to your wife as well. And listen, I want to say, and I've never really do this, but I want to say I want to give both of us a clap because two men talking on the live about how our feelings and what our view on mental health doesn't happen often. And I just want to say we're not here for medals, but we only doing this to show other men, other women, children that it's okay to talk. You're not alone. And the safe space between us wants to break the stigma and break silence. But Lee, the last word is on you. So anyone out there struggling, scared to talk out, going through a tough time now, what would your message be to them?
Just do it. Even if you just ring someone up and say help. Don't think I've got to come up with this big list or whatever, or just please just reach out, because like I said, I went growing up thinking you shouldn't speak to people, and as soon as I reached out, it was the best thing I've ever done. Like the last 3 years, I know, like we've spoke about it, I've gone through so much over the last 3 years, but if I didn't have that support system and know that I can reach out to people, I don't think I would have got through it. And like I said, please keep doing this. I think I haven't really never done a live. I've never come on and shared my story much, and I felt safe to do this. So, as Kieran keeps saying, if it ain't this space, but I think it should be this space, please reach out to someone.
No, I appreciate that, mate. And like I say, it's not. I appreciate it, and yeah, I want people to come and feel safe here, not feel judged. Even those who know me know that this isn't going to get further unless you're willing to share it. But just please be willing to speak to anyone. If it's me, if it's Lee, if it's Joe Blogs, if it's Mind, if it's any other charity, feel free. And we're not only like be a friend and talk to you. The quiz stuff, we try and do fun stuff as well because it keeps your mind busy. But I found reading a major tool. But yeah, much lovely and much respect, and I want to say thank you again. You've been like, a legend. But also thank you for everyone who has viewed this or does view this later. I really appreciate. Please do subscribe to the YouTube channel, join our Facebook group, and our emails on the screen. If you need support or you just want to chat, you can email us or DM me or Tessa. And we have got some great events going on where we're doing it. We're raising some fundraising for ourselves to be able to give out more support, but also we're linking with some great charities like Alzheimer's UK, Mind UK, and also some local nurseries and schools, etc. So please look out for that. This is a safe space between us. I've been your host, Kieran. That's been Lee, and let's break the stigma and break silence. Thank you. Lee, take care, mate.
Thank you.